Sixers. 10, 9, 8, 76ers.
What's going on, everyone? This is UK 76ers. My name is Ben Glasswell, and last night the Philadelphia 76ers beat the Brooklyn Nets by 124 points to 108 at the Wells Fargo Center. Now, before we look into this game, firstly, I do want to quickly apologise that I haven't got a video out for the Portland game. This weekend has been crazy busy once again for myself. This wasn't going to be a regular occurrence, don't you worry, but unfortunately I couldn't get it out. So what I will do just before the vid starts, I'll just do a quick summary of what happened, what went wrong, what we can take from it. As well as this, another shout out to my guys at USA Sports Merch. Phillies gear, they've got it. Sixers gear, they've got it. Eagles gear, they've got it. And Flyers gear, they've got it. And everywhere else across the United States from those 4 sports leagues, they've got your team covered. Check USA Sports Merch out today. It's a UK-based guys. They all just want to help each other out, as we often do in this community. If you check out the link, which I'll leave in the description below, and if you do make any purchases, there's 25% off with the code that, again, I will leave in the link. And if you use the link provided, then not only does it help USA Sports Merch out, it helps me out a ton as well. So that'd be greatly appreciated. On top of that, again, quick shout out to guys at Visiball. They've provided me some awesome stats, and I would implore you to go check out their site for all the NBA needs you want, because once you can figure out the stats, which, you know, with the way in which Visiball is laid out, it's so easy for anyone to figure it out. I think for myself, it can be quite daunting when looking at all these numbers, figures, tables, graphs, whatever. It's so easy to work out on their site, and that makes interpreting and analysing basketball like I do in these videos so much easier. So yeah, please check out those guys. Again, this link will be in the description below for their site, and indeed their Twitter will be linked in there too. So please check those guys out. So the Portland game, this was a disaster class. There was no Damian Lillard, there was no CJ McCollum, there was no Yusuf Nurkic, and for all the world that this would be an absolute walk in the park for the Philadelphia 76ers, but we didn't have Ben Simmons. Now, we know what this team looks like without Joel Embiid, and it's not great. We didn't really know what this team looks like without Ben Simmons, because I think we took him for granted so much so that we thought the Sixers were just how they are, even without Ben Simmons. But then you see his impact when he goes off the court. 3-pointers. We didn't hit a 3-pointer until the third quarter, and there's a reason for this. It's just because Ben Simmons isn't there. I don't know the exact statistics, but there's some crazy stat which I couldn't quite believe when I first saw. Danny Green, when he's getting assisted by Ben Simmons, is around 40%. Without getting assisted by Ben Simmons, you're looking at 35 or below. Ben Simmons draws the gravity, and then that's when the space gets opened up. And also, he's the most creative guy on this team. We don't have another backup point guard or a floor general. And you could say, oh, Shake Milton, or you could say, oh, maybe Seth Curry. They're not to the same level that, you know, they're combo guards that, you know, can create their own shot rate, kind of, but they're not people that can facilitate, that can create opportunities for other people, that can create space. Ben Simmons was missed, and it showed because of our failures at the 3-point line. The Embiid knee hyperextension, that was heart in mouth moment for all of us. I'm sure there was a collective holding of the breath as soon as he went down, and as soon as he stayed down. It looked really bad even in the video replays, but he managed to continue on. He had a fantastic game. He had 31 points in the half, but the thing is, he was being let down because no one else wanted to bear the brunt of the responsibility. Tobias Harris should have done better. It looked very much like the Tobias Harris from last season, but you will make exceptions because people do just have bad games. I was very angry, and don't get me wrong, I do find it annoying when people think, oh, it's just one game, therefore we don't have to get angry. You're allowed to be angry when the team doesn't put in effort. The Trailblazers had 9 players, and we didn't match their want or desire to win that game of basketball, and that was really worrying for me because, you know, the minimum requirement for any game is maximum effort, and we didn't give that. So, you know, all credit to Portland. They were fantastic. Gary Trent was really cool. I do really like watching him play. Melo rolled back the years a bit. Anthony Simons looked cool. But it was still, you know, it was a real wasted opportunity. Thankfully, as we know, we did beat Brooklyn this evening. But it was still, you know, it's somewhat bittersweet because we should have had 2 wins. But that kind of is basketball in many respects. And the beauty of it is that 2 days later, you can go and redeem yourself after a pretty poor performance the night before. That third quarter was damaging. They scored 40 in it, and we only scored 19. They started off with a blazing hot 14-0 run, and we just couldn't keep up, and that was the game, essentially. But, you know, you move on. Sometimes freak results happen, and this was a freak result. They are a good team, even without those 3 players. We should have beaten them, don't get me wrong, and I am still somewhat angry because I think it's inexcusable. I think it's unacceptable to give up a performance like that, to not address any issues that we got. For example, keeping Danny Green on Gary Trent, and I've said it so many times before, Danny Green can't keep up when following a guy around the screen. That's how they keep getting open looks. That's how Wayne Ellington did it. That's how Wayne Ellington kept getting open looks from 3 when he got like 20 odd points against us for the Pistons. Danny Green can't keep up when he's going round. Now, in this Brooklyn game just gone, I thought he had a good game, and I will talk about how his defense was more suited to someone going against someone like Harden, but I'll get into that in just a moment. But that was the Portland game. It was just not very good. I don't want to dwell on it too much, because I do want to talk about this Brooklyn game, because there's a hell of a lot more nice things to talk about in it. But that was the Portland game. Once again, really sorry that I couldn't get a video out for that. I hope I've done it some justice in this 5-minute period. But, you know, let's just go straight into the Brooklyn game and into a win. Now, before we know it, Kyrie wasn't playing because for whatever reason he's never able to play against the Sixers, and KD wasn't playing because NBA protocols are all over the place. But despite this, you got to look at it like this gives us an opportunity to assert ourselves, even if everyone doesn't at least appreciate that this isn't the Brooklyn Nets team that you'd expect to see in a 7-game series in the playoffs, for example. But you still got to get the job done. And the thing is, last time we played Brooklyn, they didn't have Kyrie, they didn't have KD, Harden hadn't been traded yet, and we lost. So this team can still cause damage. But, you know, I think that, you know, it was too much for Harden in terms of the people around him. Just there's not enough there. You know, you can lob it to DeAndre Jordan every now and then, or give Joe Harris a 3, but there's just not enough there for him to work with. And he did have to try his best just to do a carry job. I think he got, how many points to get? He got 26 points, 8 rebounds and 10 assists, which is a really good stat line. He did it relatively efficiently as well. Efficiently, there was 10 of 10 from the field, and I want to say 3 of 8 from 3. It was, of course, for many, James Harden coming to the Sixers to almost prove a point that we should have traded for him. On the flip side of that, Ben Simmons has to prove a point and say, no, you shouldn't have. I can still bring something to this team, and I can still show you what you got. And for me, this was his best game of the season. I keep finding myself saying that fairly recently, that Ben Simmons keeps seeming to have a better game. But he was fantastic. He was aggressive. Defensively, he was a monster. And then on the offensive end, he was finishing dunks. He was going up with, like I said, with aggression. And there was one fantastic play. He was on James Harden, steals the ball. Tyler Johnson, who tried to guard him on the fast break in a play before, he went up quite weakly against Johnson on the fast break, and then resulting in us missing a layup. No such problem this time. He steals it, goes hard, and then completely puts down a monster dunk, and then gives it large to Tyler Johnson afterwards, resulting in a tech. But, I'm happy with it. I want to see Ben Simmons get aggressive. Too often he's been labelled as perhaps a bit too passive, and he's happy to be a passenger on a team. Not a chance in this game. He really took it to Brooklyn, and he took it to James Harden, and he showed everyone that he can still bring something to this team. And we've seen just from the Portland game what this team is without him, and it's time to start respecting that he's a crucial piece to this team. You can have your worries about him with regards to shooting, with regards to his application, his aggression, but he is very, very good. It's as simple as that. His stat line was 16 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals. That's monstrous. He was incredible. This is just what you want from Ben Simmons, and this is something that he can do on a nightly basis. He was fantastic. Harris was fantastic. Embiid was fantastic. Embiid was good, but not as good as we expect by his own standards. Embiid finished on 33 points and 9 rebounds, and this was probably one of his worst games. I didn't like he was 1 from 7 from 3. He kept chucking up too many. It was very reminiscent of how Embiid played last season. Look, I have no issue with him shooting threes. I'm not trying to voice the opinions of Shaq or Charles Barkley, who's like, you got to get in the post. He can shoot, and his stats, he's about 40% from 3 this season. He can shoot well, but his 40% from 3 comes on him not shooting 10 threes a game or 7 threes a game. It's him shooting, 3 or 4 maybe, and then just getting 2 or 3 of them. He's not a volume 3-point shooter. He's just there to drain a couple if the opportunity presents itself. But, he was still solid. 33 points, 9 rebounds, and he didn't have his best game. That's the level he's at now. He's averaging 29 points a game this season. He's very close to averaging 30. And it's no coincidence why, when you watch these games, people don't know how to guard him. When he gets in that face-up and he gets in that triple threat position where the centre, who's almost on an island with him, is like, I don't know what to do. He's in the mid-range. He's like, well, he could shoot over me. He could just shimmy past me. He could pass it off because his passing's improved so much this year. He's got everything to his arsenal at the moment, and people don't know how to guard him. And it is just fantastic to watch. Tobias, awesome. And one of the stats Visible provided me was, we look at the impact ratio, we looked at the usage. Embiid had 42% usage, as you can understand, the offense runs through Embiid. But Tobias Harris had a higher impact ratio, and the reason is because he's now being trusted to lead that second unit. Because I've always called for a staggering somewhat, or whenever you can't have all the bench players out at the same time, so you've got to have one of those starters, i.e. that core three of Simmons, Embiid or Harris, to stick with those guys to ensure that we still get buckets and we can still get stops. And he does that. He's fantastic. And he didn't hit a three. He was 0 from 1 from 3, but he's been fantastic from 3 this season. But he got 21 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals and a block. That's a huge stat line, and he just finds ways. He's just getting to his spots, and I think that's a real difference. Is that he knows where he wants to shoot the ball, and he'll get there. He doesn't care who's there. He will get to his spots and shoot it from the mid range. He's lethal. It seems so easy for him, and that brings such a much more comfort to me. But when last season we're like, it's Simmons or Embiid, and those are the only guys that can help us win. Here we've got Harris now, who's stepping up and is leading the second unit, which is in many respects a very hard job. Not everyone can do it, and he's doing it fantastically well. Speaking of that second unit, Milton and Korkmaz, 15 points and 13 points. Milton's still not the most efficient, but he's getting his buckets. It was 1 of 3 from 3. I expect his 3-point percentage to eventually rise. I expect him to eventually become more efficient, but he's just getting his buckets in the most simplest way possible, from the mid-range, from the rim, from from the 3-point line if it's dropping. Korkmaz is in a nice little bit of form, 3 of 6 from 3. I still don't trust the guy, but if he's doing well for this team, I can't complain one bit. And if he ends up doing it consistently well, maybe I will have to rethink my perception on him. But for now, I'll just take it how it is. But we had 7 players in double figures this evening, and that is a bit of an indictment on Brooklyn and on their lack of defense. I was a bit shocked that Bruce Brown played very few minutes. He's probably their best defensive player, one of them at least. But yeah, they're so porous, and when that second Nets unit came in with the likes of Norvell Pell, who I think he's great. I love the fact that he'll go out for any block and he doesn't care. When you go up with that mentality, and it's an inevitability that one of these times you're going to get posterized and someone's going to dunk on you regardless. But he goes for it and he plays hard. That he's not the most savvy and he does get in a lot of foul trouble, but he's a fun player to have in your team, and I wish him all the best. So they had that bench unit of Pell, Shamet. Shamet had a really good game, 22 points. He seemed to be draining everything. It's really good to see that. I'm sure we all still like Shamet, and we want him to do well. It was really reluctant to let him go when we did trade for Harris, but it's kind of just had to be done. He had a really good game, and like I said, I hope he bounces back. But there's not a lot of defense on that bench, so we took it to him. Admittedly, it was still in the second quarter when it felt as if we were absolutely dominating them when that second unit was in. We didn't even outscore them. They outscored us by 2 points, 27-25 in that second quarter. We didn't quite put it to them as I had expected, but the eye test was something else. It looked as if we were just walking all over them. But then the third quarter happened, and ironically enough, it wasn't Embiid that sparked this third quarter renaissance, and it wasn't Simmons, it wasn't Harris, it wasn't even someone like Milton, the spark plug from the bench. It was Danny Green. Which had a really funny few minutes. Green was on Harden for a fair bit of the game, and actually I will talk quickly about Green's defense on Harden. And I talked about how important Gary Trent is nowhere near the offensive player Harden is, but simply put, if someone's on the move and he's going around screens, then Danny Green struggles because he can't catch up. He's not quite the athlete he was in terms of lateral quickness, etc. But Harden, it's ISO ball, it's keeping, and all Danny Green has to do is keep in front of the guy. And that benefited. That was a lot easier for him. Look, eventually, we did switch Simmons onto Harden, and that was the nail in the coffin for Brooklyn, because my word, Ben Simmons had a field day against him. But Danny Green, I thought, did pretty well against Harden. Look, Harden's always going to get his points because James Harden's James Harden. He's one of the best scorers we've seen in the NBA. But I think Danny Green in that situation did quite well against him. I think that's just very little things like that when he's just got to stay in front of his guy and he hasn't got to do anything too crazy with regards to running around screens. He's a solid defender. We all knew this. We all knew he's a solid defender, but sometimes he gets a bit left out to dry. But anyway, Green didn't get a foul call. It really annoyed him. He ended up getting teed up. He did that pump fake thing that he often does, which I don't think I've ever seen it work, but tried to draw a foul from behind the arc. No dice. They then teed him up because he argued so much. He then gets 2 quick threes, and then gets a nice layup from the mid-range. We got a 19-6 run. Danny Green gets 8 points in the third quarter, and we don't look back. Again, that run extended to ended up being a 14-0 run after the 19-6. Like I said, 5 players, all the starting 5 got in double figures. Seth Curry came back, he hit a couple threes, and that was fantastic. We all know what Seth Curry can do. We all know that what was happened recently was a blip. This isn't Seth. This isn't what he is. He was fantastic. Came back strong. Obviously, had a 2 from the bench in double figures too, in Korkmaz and Milton. And Simmons went on to Harden, and they couldn't score. Harden was their main facilitator. He was their main scorer. And when you shut that one guy down, well, where are they going to get their points? And it was as simple as that. And we finished that quarter outscoring by 13 points, 43-30. We were then up 16, and that was good night Vienna. It really was. That third quarter was everything. And it was spearheaded by Simmons' defense, Danny Green getting aggressive on the offensive end. And of course, all the good bits that you'd expect from Harrison and Bede. I mean, it's not as if they didn't do anything. It's just that we are so used to them performing at such a standard that when other people step up so drastically, you notice it a bit more. Fourth quarter ended up being garbage time relatively quickly. It was just rather easy. One stat that I did think was really cool was the fast break points. At one point in the fourth, it was 24 fast break points to the Sixers, 6 to the Nets. I've always been quite a critic of how we finish on the fast break, because I do think we're very wasteful, and then also do think we're very bad at transition defense and defending the fast break. And I think that's a real, good signifier that, we're making various adjustments when we are in the fast break going on the offense. We are ruthless in how we execute. We don't want to give them a chance to grab a rebound or miss a layup or, turn it over. And similarly, when we're defending, everyone gets back in numbers. Everyone gets back at, at pace. They want to get set. They want to get ready to defend this play, and they're not going to be passive and be like, if I get back, I get back. But we're probably going to concede. No, they wanted to get back and defend, and they wanted to get forward and go on the front foot, and that's a breath of fresh air. I have no doubt that some of these issues will still rear their ugly head. Portland game was a prime example, but this was just a good game. It was a good game. It was out KD, it was out Kyrie, it was even out Spencer Dinwiddie. We should have won this game, and we did. But we saw against Portland. Just because you should win a game doesn't mean you ever are going to win a game. So you have to go out there and come up with the same intensity, the same want, the same willing to win a game of basketball. Otherwise, it can very easily go away from you. So after the game against Brooklyn, we got a couple of days rest, and then we go west to Sacramento. For that game, I will be on the fifth quarter on the Twitter page. Really cool bunch of guys. I'll be doing a bit of live commentary for them on their site. Again, I will leave their Twitter handle in the description below. Really cool guys, fantastic Sixer content. I feel really privileged to actually work with them because they're a lot bigger than me, and I'll ever will be. So it's really cool that they want to branch out and expand their outreach. So I'll be doing that for the Sacramento game. It's 3 a.m. tip off, but I'll have enough coffee in me just so I do a good job for all you guys if you decide to tune in to those that live commentary on the fifth quarter. But that's me. That's the Brooklyn game. Once again, apologies for not having that Portland game video up. I think it might just be better anyway just to have a quick 5-minute summary and just leave that one behind us. But we move on to Sacramento and a West Coast trip, which I'm sure will be a bit of a struggle. They always are, because there's something about just going that far west that it's always going to be a battle. You're away from home. You're not in your usual routine, different time zone, etc. It's going to be difficult, but that's basketball. You're going to have to adjust, and this is going to be a real test of character, and I for one can't wait to see what happens. Anyway, I'll see you for the Sacramento game, guys. Thanks very much.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.